of our struggle for freedom. The SABC broadcasts will also, through information, entertainment, and education, highlight these two people's place in our history. We do both not only because it is gender correct, but because both represent what could truly be described as the best in us in terms of unwavering commitment to the ideals of justice and freedom for all. Ndate sat for 27 years in prison when he could have settled for life in Transkei after the offer to release him to that Bantustan was made. He refused, and he insisted that the balkanization of the country was a trick to rob Africans in particular of their birthrights as citizens of the whole country. In doing this, he sacrificed his family and his own life to ensure that what was finally agreed to at Codesa in Kempton Park in 1993 was as close to true freedom for all as possible, given that there had been no victor in the war of liberation. Madiba went into office as the first democratically elected president of our country and led from the front with a style and lifestyle that was exemplary. He would spend nights autographing his books so that those who bought them would pay more instead of stealing from the national purse as others did after him. Whatever he bequeathed to his children and grandchildren was justly earned. That is why when he died, the nation went into mourning on a scale never seen before, because his death was a real loss for all of us. Mama Sisulu became not only the epitome of struggle widows, but a pillar of strength whose unflinching stance against colonialism of a special type saw her banned and barred from working in state institutions. She led from the front, and as one of the co-presidents of the UDF, launched the defiance campaign of the 80s that saw her organization, the African National Congress, unbanned by the people. This was to culminate in the talks between the regime and the ANC, as de Klerk realized there was no way of containing the wave of revolutionary fever that had engulfed the country. She did all this as she stoically stood as a symbol of true African motherhood with no blemishes. Through our programs, we will chronicle in much deeper detail the journeys that these two heroes traversed. Today, therefore, is an important milestone as we start the countdown to Madiba's birthday, which appropriately will have the guest lecture done by none other than Barack Obama. You'll have to pay me for this. Yeah. Later on, we will also launch the 50 days countdown to Mama Sisulu's birthday. It is common cause that the SABC is in financial distress, but the staff has moved heaven and earth to ensure we have world-class programming that suits the status of these two. So once again, welcome. Feel at home because this is your SABC. I look forward to enlightening debates in the panel discussion that will follow under the theme, The Mandela and Sisulu Legacy, and which will be broadcast live on some of our platforms. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Selo, I wouldn't pay. I would call it a PSA, public service announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just about to go into the broadcast. I'm going to hand over to one of our presenters, the first one at Umhlobo Wenen FM. May I just remind our guests, just a few house rules from my side before we begin the broadcast. If you're looking for the bathrooms, if you could just go out on this door and turn to your left. There are bathrooms in front of the Metro FM studios, at the entrance of the Metro FM studios. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, I did allude to the fact that this is a live broadcast. I'm new apostolic minister, and every time every Sunday at church, they've got, creative messaging around how do you get people to switch off their cell phones. So this time I walked into church and it said, life is what happens when you put your cell phone on silent. So, so if we could just put our cell phones on silent, we know they can't be off because we are broadcasters and we have responsibilities towards our stakeholders, and we are on call 24 hours. If we could just put our cell phones on silent, that would be very helpful. Here, my job has come to an end, and we're about to go into a live broadcast. As I'd mentioned earlier, it is syndicated across 4 radio stations, and I can see our presenters on stage.
Two. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pastor from Umhlobo FM. I do the breakfast show. I'm not going to boast about our 5-point-something million listeners and the 3.5 million confirmed yesterday. Biggest radio show Monday to Friday on all platforms in South Africa and beyond. I will not be alone on the panel. As you can see on my far right, I've got Stephen Grotes from SAFM. Thanks. Nice of you guys to join us. We also have Sydney Baloyi as well. He also will be conducting the interviews as well for the hour-long broadcast, as well as my other colleague on my left, Utwasana. She's here with us from Ilesedi. Oh, by the way, Sydney is from Munganga Lunene. And as I said earlier, my name is Pastor from Umhlobo Wenene FM. We should be crossing over in the next 2 minutes. So I think any opening remarks from my colleagues? I'll hog the microphone then, with your permission. Thank you. We are about to start because I think we've got our news bulletins across all 5 stations, and this will be a simulcast. It will be simulcast. It's just going to be easy. I mean, as I'm the one who's going to be chairing the whole thing, I'll also hand over to my colleagues as well. As you know that it's 50 days counting down to the big day. That will be the 18th of July. We're also going to be talking to the panel. I understand that the minister is, of course, on standby as well. No, Mama, siyawamkela nama. Mama Angie. Mama Angie Jani. Hi, Jani. Mama Nomvula. There goes the breakfast show. Yeah. I'm waiting for a signal from my technical guys. Whenever we're ready, we can go. It's a huge platform, but I'll survive. I think we can start, ne? Okay. Everyone listening to us on all the other SABC platforms. Welcome to our listeners on Umhlobo Wenene FM. Welcome to our listeners, Gumunganga Lunene, SAFM, as well as Lesedi. My name is Pastor from Umhlobo Wenene FM, and today marks 50 days before what would have been the 100th birthday of Dr. Nelson Mandela, and this broadcast is among all those stations, and we're going to be taking you through in the next hour. On my panel today, I do have guests that we will be talking to, as we did allude to emoyeni ngakumbi kwaba kumhlobo FM, and I also understand that the other stations were also made aware of this special broadcast for today. I've got speakers from the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Dr. Silo Hatang, sitting next to me. You're welcome, sir. Also have the Minister in the Department of Communications, Umama Nomvula Mukunyane. I made a blunder earlier on Pulapuleka, so that's why I had to think before I speak, as well as from the Sisulu University, Sisulu family. I'm from the Eastern Cape, so we do have university, Walter Sisulu University. So it comes from there. As well as the Minister, Utata Jeff Radebe, who was also joining us, who is not part of us up at Auckland Park, but he will be joining the conversation as well later on. As mentioned earlier to the panel, Nabanta Bakoya pe SABC, I've got three of my colleagues from the other stations who I will allow to introduce themselves.
I'm Stephen Curtis from SFM. It's a great honor for me to join my colleagues here for this event. At the moment, you're joining a broadcast of 4 SABC radio stations on Globo Wenene FM, Lesedi FM, Mongana Lenone FM, and of course SAFM. We'll be together and with you for the next hour, all the way through until 9 o'clock. It's a special day that has brought us here. It's a special event that has brought us all together, and you'll hear from our guests in a moment, and details as well about how you can join this special event.
And Sydney Baloi from Mungana Lonene FM, representing Papama, one of the best morning breakfast show. Before we came on air, I just had one of my colleagues, Pastor, claiming that his radio station is the best in the country. So without having to go head-to-head with him, I'll just say ours is number 2. I see Stephen hasn't taken the number 2 spot. And because we're number 2, we really try harder. But the most exciting thing about us being here is that we are brought here by one of the greatest forces that ever walked the surface of this earth, the spirit of Utata Nelson Mandela, the man that, as we all agree, has captured the imagination of literally everybody in the world. We're very glad to have also our guests, especially Minister of Communications, Ma'am Nomvula Mukonyana, together with Minister Jeff Radebe. The Sisulu family is represented, as you heard, and from the nerve center of the organization that preserves the memory of this great man, the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Mr. Silo Hatang. It's a great, great atmosphere here.
Mohamed Walisedi, thank you so much. Coming to you live as we celebrate these great names, Tata Nelson Mandela and Me Albertina Sisulu, representing Harriet Breakfast Show, the only breakfast show that is anchored by a woman. Great! Yes! And, and I do have male colleagues working with me. But, you know, as we put a spotlight on Mayor Albertina Sisulu, it's a great honor for me to be part of this conversation this morning. And as we also put a spotlight on women issues in 2018. So, yeah, Pastor?
In modern terms, they say beef has been declared. Among all the stations. But yeah, thanks guys, and that will be our panel for today. I think we should take a break. It's 10 past already. We should be going for commercial breaks across the stations, and we'll be back within 2 minutes and kick the proceedings off immediately thereafter.
It's fine. It's fine. Fine, thanks. Thanks. I heard you this morning say, never done this before. Great.
That was radio. I'm scared.
Yeah, that's fine. I get back announcement. Just a conversation. All right. All right, we are live again. We're live. Okay, cool.
Extra small.
Extra X.
It's like the neck is like
You signal when you're ready. Yes, which is.
Here's a bit of a, there's a complaint, right? Because when I was emceeing, I was not on air. So, Usoli, sorry, just say, all the radio stations, including Channel Africa, are taking live feed.
Okay.
From the proceedings.
Oh, okay.
Because the 4 stations are doing the syndication, right?
Yeah.
But the rest are taking live feed.
Okay.
So just it's Channel Africa and all the other radio and the remainder of our stations are taking live feed.
Oh my.
It might not be seen to very aware. There's a complaint just mentioned. Stand by. Is also taking live feed because it's on the air as MC. So there's a general complaint about that.
And we welcome you back to this special broadcast marking 50 days before what would have been Ndate Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday. Just another announcement. We are live on the 4 stations, but we also have Channel Africa taking a live feed and the other stations as well. We're also going to be taking questions and would like to involve you as the listener at home so you can take part in the discussion. The hashtag, if you are on Twitter, it's Living His Legacy. Living His Legacy. And the hashtag live his legacy. Live his legacy. I hope you've got that. LIVE. And if you'd like to comment or you'd like to pose a question to my panel, you can call us on 011 714 2796. 011 714 2796. First question goes to the Minister of Energy, Dada Jeff Radebe. Why is it important that we celebrate the former statements, Dada Nelson Mandela as well as Umamo Albertina Sisulu's lives, more especially when it comes to the 100 years that they were supposed to be celebrating this year?
Thank you to you and all the listeners on this very special broadcast. As the South African government, we believe that these 2 stalwarts, they dedicated their lives, that the people of South Africa and indeed the whole continent becomes free. So we need therefore to remember the values that they cherished during their lifetime and the legacy that have left them behind. But also, more importantly, is that we need to recommit ourselves as South Africans, as Africans, to the values that they cherish, the values of integrity, of passion, of respect, of integrity. All these values so that we can live the Mandela and Masisulu. So as a result of that, we felt as a South African government that it is extremely important that our children today, who were not there when Mandela was fighting so that you and me be free, to understand that this freedom was a dedicated, was a freedom that came about through the sacrifices of people like Dr. Mandela and Umama Sisulu, so that we can be able to live the legacy. That is why we say be the legacy, a woman of fortitude when it comes to Mama Sisulu.
Now, the high point of these celebrations is on the 18th of July. We also know that the former President of the United States, Barack Obama, is also going to be delivering a speech. But what else besides that is going to be marking this day?
Well, besides the great celebration on the 18th of July, leading up to the 18th of July, there are a series of things that are going to be happening in South Africa, including a Youth Day. As we know that Mandela really cherished the youth of South Africa and the youth of the world as well. And also to the Comrades Marathon that is going to be taking place in Durban and Pietermaritzburg is also going to be dedicated to Mandela, as well as these special Fridays. Every Friday of the month, we need to ensure that we live the legacy of Mandela, so that we do the little things that can show the contribution that we as South Africans, as part of active citizens, we can be able to do in order to promote the values that Mandela and Mama Sisulu stood for.
Yep. Thank you. We also have Usisintsiki Sisulu Singapi. I'd like to bring you in here. What does this mean for the Sisulu family?
Thank you very much, and good morning to all the listeners. For the Sisulu family, it really symbolizes a working together an exemplary leadership who worked together, who complemented each other in their strengths. And Masisulu says at one point that during the struggle, obviously, she was arrested many times, and when she had one of the court cases, she was actually represented by Madiba. And she risked at the time, and she says, losing her nursing license, but it was worth it. And of course they won. So, and I'm sure that Madiba did that pro bono. So it means that we have to promote that kind of leadership to say, you know, and of course you would know that, of course, there's an important part around ensuring women empowerment at a time when patriarchy reigned supreme and still does, and Uma Sisulu stood up for that. So women empowerment was absolutely critical, and you would know also that it was for Madiba. So it's important that for us as a family that we're seen as contributing but really living that legacy of integrity and of service.
Thank you. A reminder to our listeners, you can send your questions if you'd like to phone in, 011-714-2796. We shall be reading some of your comments and questions later on. The hashtag, if you are on Twitter, Live His Legacy. Simple as that, Live His Legacy. I think we should cross over to one commercial break, and then immediately thereafter, I'll hand over to Stephen.
I noticed that too. Breakfast radio at Siki. It's how it always is. Minister, I'm going to speak to you now. Okay.
Okay. Stephen, we're back on.
Lenone FM and SAFM, we're commemorating the start of the countdown of 50 days until the 100th birthday of Nelson Mandela. Also commemorating the centenary, of course, of the birth of Albertina Sisulu. One of our special guests here is the Minister of Communications, Nomvula Mokonyane. Minister, good morning.
Good morning.
I've never said this to you before. Welcome to 4 breakfast radio shows.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Very phenomenal.
Albertina Sisulu, so often described, I mean, the words that come through, fortitude, strength, courage. We'll get to inspiration in a moment, but there's an immense strength that she had. That's a lesson to all of us.
Morning to listeners and morning to the audience here. Yes, the strength comes out of just her own life experience. A woman who had to look and take care of her family at a tender age whilst pursuing a professional career in nursing. And somebody who identified with the young militant ANC Youth Leaguers, who was the only one who attended the founding of the ANC Youth League, not invited by Walter Sisulu, invited by Nelson Mandela. What a coincidence, once more. And more than that also, post the banning of the ANC and other liberation movements, the emergence of a mass organization in South Africa, she was also identified by South Africans to become the president of the United Democratic Front. It might not be said that she was the president of the ANC, but she led all structures that were identifying with the cause of the African National Congress. As a woman who has endured pain as a family, as a wife, as an ordinary freedom fighter, but of importance, she became also somebody who inspired hope. And the strength of Masisulu was based on the journey that she has traveled. And hence the South African government had to rename R21 and that windy road, the Albertina Sisulu highway, precisely because it depicts her life. Somebody who has not had a life that has been easy, but had the strength to take us to where we are.
When you talk about, I mean, immense figures in our history like her, people talk about strength and fortitude and courage, but something that the struggle also must have needed surely was love. Love for children particularly.
Love for children. Masisulu, when you walk into Masisulu's yard, you wouldn't know who's Masisulu's daughter, son. Everybody was like the child of that family in Orlando, and all of us going into a meeting when Masisulu was under house arrest. The first thing before you go into the dining room, remember we grew up in the dining room, no lounge. In the dining room, the first thing that Masisulu will be asking you, udlile, did you eat? And on the side there was auntie. Auntie would make sure that there's a big pot of soft porridge you eat, but when days are wrong, just typical of a mother, she doesn't ask you about whether you've eaten. She says, who do you think you are? This movement is bigger than you. And you fail to go to Tafelkop. You fail. And the time, remember, there was no train. There was no, you had to board 3 buses and a train to get to Orlando. And as she chases you out of the dining room, before you get out of the gate, she calls you back. And typical of a mother. And amongst other things, she will ask you about the home and all those things. When you've done well, Masisulu celebrates with you. Sometimes when you fail to do the thing, Masisulu will take you along. The most important thing about the love for children, remember she was a health professional. Whilst under house arrest, Masisulu used to have the small brown suitcases that had a baby oil, that had the gripe water, and a number of cotton wools and stuff that you will take. She used to collect them from whoever, we don't know. You take them to mothers who are first-time mothers, because she would have gone to those houses to go and help the new mother to give birth. And it was part of her contribution, and therefore her love for the nation, her love for children, went as far as her becoming the midwife of the community of Soweto.
There's a lesson there for South Africa now when you hear so many stories of things that affect our children, and you sort of think of the society we're trying to build, that she was already back then sort of already trying to build that, trying to show through her actions how important love was.
She was, and if you look at how the National Education Crisis Committee was actually founded, and how Masisulu was part of the delegation that went to meet with Sam de Pierre, who later became a member of the ANC, by the way, and an MPL here in Gauteng, Mama was more concerned about 3 things, interestingly. Access to education, particularly for a girl child. Today we talk about free sanitary pads. And she would say, abantwana mabancediswe ukuthi bangahluleki ukuya esikolweni ngoba bekuyichinji. That's how she would say it. These young girls must not be deprived to go to school because they're having their menstruations for these coming 3 days. And you know what did she train us to do as part of our work in the struggle in the Federation of Transvaal Women? As we run workshops, is to teach a young girl to say, you can use a white cloth, including myself, have 3 of them, wash them, throw them out there in the sun, and then they would actually get the gems and everything, so that then you go to school. Secondly, she supported COSAS, because one of the things in COSAS was about making every student to look the same and promote equality. The call for a black and white uniform, so that every child, as she walks into school, you can't then say your parents couldn't afford a blazer and that other family couldn't afford a blue shirt. And she said, abantwana mabafane. That was very important. Her love for children, her love for this country and education. Then the third one was on helping Umamu Ritanzanga, a very close friend of Mamu Matikizela Mandela, to work with Umamu Mantlapo in forming the South African Domestic Workers Union. And look, you assent to all these things to say, Uzayoba Kukuzela Ababantu. Because she felt they are very vulnerable, but they're doing a very important job. And the simple thing that she helped us to go and run workshops for domestic workers. Of course, the scripts were written by Jessie Duarte. She would, and Sis Esther Malika, who has passed on, she would actually say the domestic worker must be given a chance to spend time with her children. That's Masisulu. And part of us organizing them into the union and them being part of the Federation of Transvaal Women was to say, we're not making you to fight with your employer, but as you look after your employer's kids, tell the employer, you also must know your children.
There's so much more still to do in the sort of gender space to empower women in our society. Do you think that Albertina Sisulu would look back and see where we were in 1994 and look at where we are now and think we're making progress but still a lot to be done? Would that sum it up?
She will actually frown upon those of us who are in authority, who are pursuing patriarchy and are resisting the successes that have been made. Excuse me, because firstly, the constitution of this country guarantees the rights of women and the girl child. Policies have been put into place. What is missing are the resources. Secondly, how we bring up our children, particularly grooming the boy child. And so that then we don't have men of today, young men of today who, when there is no more love between the two, they would opt to kill the other. And I think, Masisulu, even about broken families, I can share with you our own personal experience. When there was the second state of emergency in 1980, in the late 80s, leaders of the UDF, my husband included, because he was a leader of the UDF in the West Rand and in the General and Allied Workers Union, all these men were running away from the townships and were sleeping in Yeoville and stuff. And we felt uncomfortable. I mean, you feel insecure, you're a woman. And we went to Mama and said, you know, Mama, these men are running and they are hiding in these white women's places in Yeoville. And we wanted to fight these white women comrades who were now giving accommodation to our men. And she said, Hlalani Phansi, again in the dining room. We sat in the dining room and she closed the door and she said, you don't, in a liberation struggle, don't get involved in people's personal issues because this movement will collapse. Don't tamper with those things. The second thing that she said was to say, amongst other things, never make these men to make you inferior. When you go to a meeting, prepare, read, understand the topic. Don't allow them to conclude on an item that you can resolve better.
Minister of Communications, Nomvula Mokunyane. You're with the special broadcast today on Mhlobo Wenene, Lesedi FM, Munganana Lonene, and of course SAFM. Good morning to you. We're taking your calls for our special broadcast. It's 011-714-2796, the hashtag Live His Legacy. It's 8:30. Are you taking over? Okay. I think I speak again towards the end.
Yeah.
You have to champion this, just the comments. I think there's two that I've seen here with the hashtag, and then you hand over to Twasa.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to...
Okay, yeah, cool.
I don't see those tweets, eh?
I follow the hashtag. Live His Legacy.
Yeah, yeah. The employee is not
Okay,
available. Has moved, yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Sure. Live, be the legacy.
Good morning. You're with a special broadcast this morning across the country for SABC radio stations today, and it's a special event, of course, to look once again and particularly to commemorate the lives of Albertina Sisulu and Nelson Mandela. Plenty of guests here with you. You're live this morning across the nation on Mhlobo Wenene, Lesedi FM, Munganana Lonene, and of course SAFM. Good morning to you. A couple of tweets coming through and you're using the hashtag this morning, Live His Legacy. People's Councillor, you say we need to reignite our commitment to this country's founding democratic values and to primarily consider the principled leadership and the collective action required from all of us to restore a vision for a united, non-racial nation for us all. You've used the hashtag Live His Legacy. We're taking your calls in our special broadcast as well. It's Johannesburg 011 714 2796. Let's go to my colleague now from Lesedi FM, Twasa.
Dade, thank you very much. As we continue with the conversation, there's some interesting things I'd like to pick up from you, Nomvula. And you spoke about how the boy child is being raised. As one of the people that are very active also in the Women's League, I'd like to find out, are there particular programs, for instance, in this period of time to begin to address some of the things that you have actually raised in addressing patriarchy? Firstly in the home and then going out also into the corporate world.
Yes, thanks, Twasa, and I'm happy. By the way, it's strange, we all are communicating in English, but it's okay. Yes, I think you started correctly in the family at home. And it can only happen if we all appreciate and value the upbringing within a family. But we know that there's a lot of contestation in terms of access to information on our children. The Department of Social Development, the Moral Regeneration, there's a men's forum that was launched by Ntate Motlanthe then, and here in Gauteng we know that there was also a big movement that was launched between the Gauteng government and the Tirano church with Ntate Mokwena. And all these forums are beginning to help in creating dialogue, and there's also now a move beyond taking a girl child to work. But saying taking a child to work so that then everybody appreciates the changing of roles at home, and the recognition of the contribution of every individual child also becomes quite critical. The movement is quite at its infancy, but we know that there are pockets of excellence, as I'm saying. We know here in Gauteng, in KwaZulu-Natal, there's the anti-sugar daddy movement also that deals with these kind of issues. I see Pastor is actually frowning on it, but yes, that's part of what helps, because one of the things that has come out is that the boy child is always left all by himself, because daddy is with a girlfriend who's the age of the boy at home. And the boy can't afford looking after the girl that daddy is dating. The boy child needs to be listened to on those things, just even on his stages of development and sexual orientation and all those kind of things. So it is those programs that we are dealing with. But the most important thing is about dealing with the insecurities that come with the inequalities of our children as they are being given attention, but also the issues about the failure for parents to listen and converse with their own children. I mean, the 5 incidents now in the last 10 days of boyfriends actually killing their own loved ones is an indication of something that has gone wrong in terms of insecurity, in terms of violence, and we need to address that. And hence I'm saying this social movement of the men's forum and father and son relationship is quite important, because again, the other study that has come out of the social development, and I'm sure also Nziki from the women's ministry can attest to that, is that many of our children are brought up by single parents. And single parents who are single parents not out of choice, but out of a determination to rather be alone, but rather than being with the monster. So it is those things that we definitely have to deal with as a society. The fact that everybody say we need to create safe homes for abused women. We're not talking about recreational facilities. We're talking about investing on protecting one another against each other. And it's those programs that we deal with. Policing comes after the fact. Policing comes after the fact, and therefore these social movements that have been created need to be enhanced, and we need to also deal with issues of drugs, of substance abuse, particularly alcohol, and we must take advantage of the public broadcaster that even the content of what we're showing to our young people, it must be something that makes young people not to think that macho approach will actually make you to be respected or to be loved. But we also need to talk to the girl child who must not allow herself to be used and taken for a ride. You need to assert yourself, and it needs to be known that when you say no, it actually means no, you don't want.
Sure. Thank you very much, Minister. We do have callers. You can call us on 011-714-2796 to join the conversation of this special broadcast. We have Ayanda. It looks like we have lost that caller. You can call us on 011-714-2796 or ensure that you tweet us and use the hashtag #LiveHisLegacy. We will receive your questions. Just to include Minister Jeff Radebe into the conversation, looking at us celebrating Tata Nelson Mandela today, one cannot help but note that these men were married to very powerful women, both Tata Sisulu and Tata Nelson Mandela. Can you maybe take us through the kind of psyche that it takes for a man to be married to such a woman? Because it seems to be a bit of a struggle. How does one navigate the complexity of their ego to still let somebody they love rise and actually actualize their own passions and their own dreams, looking at the fact that Mewini Mama Sisulu played very significant roles in the struggle in this country?
Well, if you look at the story of Tata, Walter Sisulu and Mom Albertina Sisulu, it's one of the most outstanding love story of our times. So that's why we're very happy. That these two families, the Sisulus, the Mandelas, but also we can also include the Tambos. Those are the real heroes of our times in the struggle for freedom and democracy. So that's why it is our responsibility now, those who are taking over from those stalwarts, to ensure that we leave their legacy, but promoting those values that they dedicated their life for.
Thank you very much, Ntate Jeff. Mamedi, we are now going to take a commercial break and we will be back after this.
amamkela nakambe aka vuhaxi lebyo hlawuleka kusuka tindlwini ta vuhaxi ta SABC la Johannesburg. Mina Sydney Baloyi ni yimela nongonoko wa phaphama aka Munghana Lonene. Vatirhikulori va mina Stephen Crotus from SAFM, Pastor kusuka aka Munghana Lonene, kusuka aka Mhlobo Wenene FM na Thwasa kusuka ka Lesedi FM. Hi langutise masiku ya 50, countdown ya hina ya 50 ku ya aka centenary birthday ya President Nelson Mandela. Leswi endlaka ku hi mi tivisa our next guest, who I probably think has got the most envied of all jobs.
Yo.
Mr. Silo Hatang, the CEO from the Nelson Mandela Foundation. For a man who is running an organization that is at the heart of preserving the history, the memory, and the legacy of such a great name as Nelson Mandela, I don't think I can be second guessed to suggest that you've got the most envied jobs of all.
I think maybe let me first say good morning, but it's envied until you run out of tickets for the Obama lecture. So because from yesterday, we released about 4,500 tickets online, and within 2 hours they were gone. And then my phone started ringing, people being rude, people being... So words were used to describe me, to say, Hatang, we want more. So just to say to the first, I've run out of tickets. I don't have. So the foundation doesn't have any more tickets for the but I thought we should, as we get into these centenaries, we should go back to where Ausintiki ended, about Me Sisulu and her nursing career. In a country where today we're talking about patients being pushed with wheelbarrows out of hospitals because there's industrial action. In a country where a child can die in a pit latrine, and the care is not there to then help rescue them. In a country where you can paralyze the system completely because a union demands something, and it just keeps demanding it until the health system in the Northwest is about to be on its knees. Where I was born in Tleckstop Hospital, the doctors have not been allowed in. So I think if we are to live these legacies, we must start where we are today in order to reimagine the century that's coming. To say a child who will be born in the next 100 years, when we all are gone, should not experience this the stuff that we are experiencing today. But going to the kind of programs that we should be all championing is to ensure that each one of us carries the responsibility that Madiba advocated for when he said that when we wake up in the morning, as a listener, one should worry about, ask oneself one question: what am I doing to help build a country of my dreams? In other words, we are a country of dreamers, but dreamers who need to be taking action to build that country. It takes a visionary to then build that country that we want.
Yeah, obviously you are the, as the Nelson Mandela Foundation, you are the engine room, you are the nerve center for some of the most important mass appeal initiatives that will be happening ahead of the centenary celebrations. Is there one or two that you can specifically tell us about?
You're going to get into trouble because I have my chairman, Minister Khatebe, who is the chairman of the IMC. He's the engine room that's coordinating all of us. So before I get fired by Minister Khatebe, I'm second to him. So let's just get the order right. But I think in terms of the programs that we want to do, you'd note that President Ramaphosa recently announced that there's going to be the Nelson Mandela Tumamina Fund. That's something that we're going to launch on the 18th of July. And to allay fears about what that fund will be doing, it's to ensure that we go back to those needs, key needs, including ECDs. In fact, Minister Mokonyane was talking about the love for children, how we need to be taking care of the basics of children. The first 1,000 days of a child, they determine whether they can succeed or not. And we will use this fund to ensure that we respond to that need. And we're still to determine with the president how this will be run, but on the 18th, that's something that's going to happen. But we're also going to be hosting at least about 6 presidents as part of the program from the 16th through to the 18th. On the 19th, we're going to have President Clinton, who will then also be hosting young people, dealing with some of the difficult issues that we're dealing with today. So all of us, as we go next month, we're hosting events with the Gauteng government, where we will be in Nasrec with the Gauteng government, again marking these two legacies. So the 50 days should be about how do I ensure that for the next countdown, as we go to 49 days, how am I building that country that the child must find themselves in the next 50 years?
Yeah, yeah. We all know what President Mandela did for South Africa, for all of us seated here and everybody listening to us right now. In fact, the world treats him almost like a rock star. I've always wanted to know, are there global organizations that often get in touch with yours to try and share examples of best practice?
Yeah, we do. In fact, I think it's true to say that we had to do the same thing. When Madiba established the foundation in '99, stories told of how he used to call his former staff members to say, organize this meeting for me. Can you organize this flight? And after a while, they had to tell him, actually, you're no longer president. We're not working for you. We're working for the new guy in town. So I think it's that then led us to then go to Tanzania. We went to most of the African countries and the US to look at best practice. How do you celebrate a former president? That's why the Center of Memory was then born. And with this, we've then been helping mostly South African organizations to help with best practice. In the global picture, we've worked with the Martin Luther King Foundation, for example. They've come and seen to check what we're doing. How do we get it right? We're still learning too. And there's many things that we get right, and there are those that we get wrong.
We're very proud of your organization and all the great things you do on behalf of South Africans, because it's in the interest of everyone that the legacy, the history, and the memory of Nelson Mandela is preserved and promoted. Thank you very much, Silo Khatang. Harna n'wina hi ta va hi kha hi ya mahlweni hi saleriwe hi nkarhinyana wutsongo mi nga rivali ku ya mahlweni mi kha mi hi nyika mavonelo ya n'wina aka ti-Facebook, Twitter @Munghana Lonene aka Facebook, kasi hi ta ya mahlweni ni ri na Stephen Crotus, Pastor na Twasa hi ri na vayeni va hina la a SABC.
Yep, sapenda sabuya kwakhona kulusasazo lukhethekileyo ngolusuku luphawula insuku ezingama-50 phambi kosuku lokuzalwa katata Nelson Mandela. Kudala ingxoxo iqhuba ke apha ngaphakathi, ndiyacinga uba selifikile ixesha loba siphe umphulaphula ekhaya ithuba lokuba naye asitsalele abuze umbuzo afuna ukubuza. Do we have someone on the line? Is there someone on the line? Hello? Got cut off. There's one question while we're still waiting for the next call, and I'd like to pose this to Mama Mokonyane as well as the Minister Ukhade. Temba Rajuili says, good morning. How will government protect fathers from exclusion in the life of their children in cases where mothers use state instruments to control fathers?
I'm sure it's something that we must never allow. Restraining orders and all those means, the restraining orders and all other means of protecting a child. And good that we're discussing this during the Child Protection Week. Surely we need to make sure that every parent, whatever their differences as partners, should not affect the life of a child and the access to both parents. But of course, part of what we also need is to ensure that irrespective of the challenges, the child must never be deprived. And the law doesn't actually allow. It is an offense to abuse the means that have been created to protect anyone who's vulnerable. So if there is a mother who does that, the father has a right to go and open a case in the same vein, and he would actually be given the necessary support. It is unacceptable. The law does also give you the right to fair representation and protection.
Okay. Thanks, Ma. I think let's get closing comments because we've got 7 more minutes to go. Okay. Yes, Mr. Minister?
I just want to add on that question that the Constitution is the basic law of our land. So it is important that parents, fathers and mothers need to protect their own children because the protection of the rights of children are entrenched in our democratic constitution. So the spirit of Ubuntu that Mandela and Mars Sisulu stood for must be taken forward in order to ensure that we protect the rights of all our children, regardless of the differences that the parents might have. Because at the end of the day, these children are the future leaders of our society. So in the spirit of Ubuntu, we need to foster that active citizenship in order to ensure that families are the basic unit of any society.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. We're almost out of time, but I'd like to get closing comments. I'll start on my right here with you, Mr. Hadang. A word from the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Last words.
Thank you very much, Pastor. I think to all South Africans who are listening, we're all saying to each one of you, let's help build that country. Let's help build the world that Madiba thought it is in our hands to help build. So the baton has been given to us. It's upon us to make sure that we build it. A gore o mong le o mong wa rona tshwantse a gana go eleng gore re batla gore re nne motlotlo ka yona.
Thank you. Mama Konyana?
We're standing on the shoulders of these gentle giants. We have to also make sure that we pull the others as they've done with us, so that then this country does not actually get undermined because of leaders who are not capable to stand the storm of taking responsibility and leading.
Sisiki, word from the family. Last words.
And Kosbut, this being Youth Month, Master focused quite significantly much of her time on the issues of quality education for youth, having turned her home into an education institution until the police got a hold of it and decided to ban it. And so we do want to encourage the youth to awaken to their greatness so that this nation can be better, because they indeed have brought us the freedom and democracy. What is it then that we are going to create to make this South Africa better?
Thank you. Last words, Mr. Minister.
For me, let's continue the legacy of Mandela, the legacy of Mama Sisulu, to ensure that those legacies must stay on for generations to come.
Yeah.
Thank you. My colleagues, words to your listeners. Last words to us.
Mamedi re lakatsa hore le boha holo o bile le rona tsa tsenela ka jeno mme molaetsa o moholo ko ona o wa hore maphelong a rona re phele ka tsela eo baetapele bana ba ileng ba phela ka yona. So I would also like to say thank you very much to all our listeners that tuned in from the different radio stations, and yeah, let's hook up again tomorrow morning, our normal place.
Sydney.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it's just me or it's a fact. Stephen, you might have made this observation as well. I think in life and in death, Nelson Mandela continues to unite South Africans. In fact, South Africans never looked at that man through political eyes, which is why his birthdays and all the ceremonies that we do in his name, they are observed almost equally across the board by all South Africans. Wouldn't you just want to see this happen with everybody that we commemorate or remember in South Africa?
It's absolutely, and I think the point that you're making so strongly is that there's Nelson Mandela did things for every one of us, and there should be a piece of him in each one of us. And sometimes it's to that piece of ourselves we should look when we decide what should we do, what should we say at this moment, what should I tweet right now, all of those things. What is that piece of Madiba saying to me? That's where I would start.
Yeah. Final words from me. Well, in the last, we might look at these last 50 days towards the birthday as a government initiative or an initiative of the foundation, but I think it's high time South Africans start owning these things, because Nelson Mandela, he gave up his life, Mama Sisulu gave up her life for us as South Africans to benefit. So South Africans out there, let's please take ownership. It's all ours. Well, this has been a live broadcast from the SABC in Auckland Park. Thanks to my guests, thanks to everyone who made it through, thanks to the board members, and thanks to leadership at the SABC. Nkosi kakhulu ngosiphixesha lakho mphulaphula ekhaya, indaba kuzo zontathu zonne phofu izitishi zawube zilandela kwangoku. Nkosi kakhulu, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could stay seated so that we could close the program. When we open the program, we are just into the last leg of our program. As Pastor said, we've come to the end of our broadcast, but not the end of celebrating the Mandela legacy. I think the next 49 days, really this broadcast, what it's done is to amplify the celebrations of these two important stalwarts. Selo Tata Madiba once said, there's no passion to be found in playing small. So I've made a decision that I am donating the picture I took many years ago with Tata Madiba. The proceeds will to be auctioned. Half the proceeds will go into the Tumamina Fund, but most importantly for me, half of the proceeds will go into buying a replica of Minister's suit for me. So we've really, ladies and gentlemen, we've really enjoyed having you in our dining room, not lounge, this morning. And we hope that it's important for us, these meaningful memories